Any other board members' comments on that particular issue? Yes, Ms. Lichter.
I would actually agree with Ms. Donalds on this one. Sex is included. I guess my question is, we have 3 policies on tonight that have this transgender sexual orientation, and I'm just wondering who initiated these policies in the first place. That's my first question.
NEOLA brought it to my attention. They asked for my review, asked if there's any legal contradiction. I said, I don't see it because of the way the case law is. For all 3 of these policies, they brought these to your review? They're fundamentally similar because they deal with harassment and discrimination in the 33-62 and 5517. Now, let me just make a comment about 5517 because it was brought up before. These policies, perhaps as you will recall, were the zero tolerance policies were developed by the district back, I believe, in 2000, a long time ago. Since that time, the state has insisted through statute and through administrative rule that we make a bullying policy. We have to. So if you're saying, is there overlap? Yes, there's overlap. Does it sometimes make sense? I'm not sure. But bullying sometimes is equivalent to harassment. Sometimes it's treated as targeting on the basis of all kinds of things. So let's suppose your question before about religion. And I would like to address this actually because I know that there was a person who sent us all an email in which he questioned, will there be protection, say, of Christian students? The answer, yes, would be here in the policy, regardless of what the religion is. And certainly it's a matter of bullying. So let's suppose we see somebody targeting a Christian student and they have this pattern of continuing that targeting. They both can be taken to task under 5517 as well as under the bullying policy, which makes it all that more difficult for that particular person. So yes, that protection would be afforded.
Well, then my question then for the NEOLA representative, since you have initiated these policy changes, is this pretty common in other school districts? Are they all changing their language to, even though it has religion, national origin, age, sex, and then in parentheses, sexual orientation and transgender identity, are other districts now doing this? And if so, why?
Other districts have been adopting that language as policy over the course of the last couple of years in response to the Office for Civil Rights investigations and audits and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's investigations and audits, and their insistence through the Department of Justice, also through the U.S. Department of Education, that these are top priority issues for their investigation and enforcement.
All right, so how many districts approximately in the state of Florida?
We're currently working with 25 districts in Florida. This language was included as part of Update 15 number 2, and I would say that thus far 60% of those districts have already adopted that language, and others are considering it.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same concerns. I mean, to Ms. Donald's point of religion, why then wouldn't you put in parentheses all the specifics? I mean, we could go down the line for all of these things. I mean, not to be funny, but I mean, I've been discriminated by my hair color because I'm blonde and got all the blonde jokes. Are we going to now put hair color? I mean, where do we draw the line? And I'm very concerned with 3 policies that come up today with this issue. And I think we're walking a very slippery slope. I can give an example of an incident in New York, in the state of New York, at a school over a transgender issue where a student was a boy, became a girl, and next thing you know, he's allowed in the girls' locker rooms. And I think we are opening up a big can of worms here, and I'm very concerned.
Well, the bathroom issue is becoming a national issue, and I think once you and I had a long conversation about transgender issues, this district is struggling with that issue in its schools.
Well, I think a national issue is that there's been a lot of discrimination against Christians as well, but I don't see this.
Religion wouldn't it cover it?
What? Yeah, I think if we're going to go down this road, then yes, I think we should add Christianity to religion.
Okay. On that note, if I could just ask Mr. Terry your opinion on this particular issue if you have one, and if not, if you wanted to add something else.
Well, I want to ask a couple of questions. First of all, why, in fact, and this is probably a legal reason, but why, in fact, can't we just say that we don't discriminate against anybody, period?
Because all the case law, all the statutes indicate they identify groups that will stand out. And so this really tracks the law on that we won't discriminate against anyone. You know, has certain fundamental issues. Somebody can all of a sudden say, you know, you knew that I really love this healthy snack and I couldn't have it, so you must be discriminating and retaliating against me. I mean, you've got to have a classification in which it gives meaning and reason to these issues. So the case law and the statutory law have evolved, Mr. Terry, since the 1960s. We're now talking about 50 years of federal, state, and federal case law along with the statutory law. So I think to jettison all of this just to say, you know, we're going to be nice to everybody, I'd love to know that that's true. But some issues require, for example, identification, and that's why, for example, bullying. There has to be a review of what the bullying is. What are we really doing in that? And complaint procedures that are part of it. That's why if you look at page 2 of the bullying statute, policy, you'll notice that it referenced the definitions of 5517 shall also be taken into account so that it gives some clarity and meaning to complaints that come in. That would be my response to that. I think you would get into the problem of something being vague by just saying we're fine with being good to everybody. We should be anyway.
I understand the rationale because of the law, et cetera, but it just seems to me that you know, whenever you start making lists of different things, you identify specific groups or people. All you do is keep adding on to that list, and eventually there'll be 2 more things coming on here later, et cetera, et cetera. And it just seems to me that we're all people, we're all individuals, and all of this doesn't really matter if you just don't discriminate against anybody. But I understand that the law doesn't treat it the same way that we may treat it in a common sense sort of way.
Do I like your worldview of doing unto others? You bet I do. But since in theory and practice that wonderful maxim has not been followed, that's why the law comes in and imposes sometimes this stuff. But the
my next question comes from the angle of the religion thing, and I just want to make sure that when we just say religion in there, that covers a person's freedom of religious thought or of religious beliefs, and all of those things are incorporated in that one word, religion, so that if something happens, for example, if we have a person with a different sexual orientation who is a principal of a school, and a person comes in and they religiously don't believe in sexual orientation, and they lose that job opportunity, are they covered by the same rights as another person?
I would argue that they would. Where might the problem come in the situation that you're describing? If that person who is speaking out against sexual orientation issues starts targeting that principal or teacher in a manner that is unwelcome and unwanted, then you're entering the realm of harassment and bullying.
But the same thing applies to somebody doing the same thing against a religious person.
Right. What I'm saying to you is, should that person who says, I don't believe this, my religion is such that it runs contrary to my faith, and then be fired for that, I think that'd be a serious problem.
Okay. The last thing is just, and I don't always agree with Mr. Bracci, but he made a suggestion that some, and I didn't get the exact wording he said, but in no way should the policy suggest or be construed to require additional curriculum, et cetera. I'm not sure that there's something that maybe we need to look at in that way.
I don't, you know, I don't know where he's going with that, how you would. These are harassment and discrimination policies. And if there's a curriculum issue in which somebody is objecting to it, there are all kinds of other rules that would come into play. I don't know how you would word that. If his question is, should we have in the curriculum or not include in a curriculum, whatever, that we support somebody's sexual choices, well, this policy doesn't choose anyone. It just says you're safe to work here. You're safe to go to school here. You're safe to be here. It doesn't raise curricular questions. So that's the part of his argument. I'm unclear of what he's saying, and I listened to his comments quite carefully.